This is episode 383 of Jumble Think.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumble Think, where we interview dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers all about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. On the show today, our guest is NQ. More about NQ in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, if you've never subscribed to Jumble Think, now's the time to do it. Head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts, search for Jumble Think, and click subscribe. To make it even easier, if you head on over to jumblethink.com, you'll find links to places like Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, and more. So take some time right now, subscribe to the show, and never miss another episode of Jumble Think. Now let's join today's conversation. Hey there, friends. Welcome to Jumble Think. My name's Michael Woodward. I am your host. We have a really cool conversation lined up for you today with NQ. NQ is an award-winning poet, multi-platinum songwriter, and best-selling author of the book Inquire Within. He has a lot of achievements. He is the first spoken word artist to perform with Cirque Du Soleil. He's been featured on A&E, ESPN, and HBO's Deaf Poetry Jam. Beyond that, he has an Amazon Prime special called NQ Live at the Ace Theater. His poetry videos have gone viral with over 70 million views. He's the songwriter for Selena Gomez's hit song, Love You Like a Love Song. The list goes on and on and on of his achievements, the companies he's worked with, the things that he's done. Why don't we go ahead and join today's conversation with our guest, NQ. We are here with NQ. It's awesome to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
Now, I first experienced you in a podcast event for PodMax, the team over there. And so it's just really a joy to have you on the show to talk about what you do, because it's so vastly different than anything any of our other guests really do. And so I'm excited about that.
You know, I was at a thing the other night and someone asked me what I did. And I said, I'm a poet. And he said, I think this is the first time in my life I've ever met a poet. And I was like, yeah, I get that a lot. So I think people don't even really know what to make of me. They don't even really understand that it can be something that people do professionally in modern society.
Yeah, you always think of poets as long ago, as the masters of literary that have long since passed. And then we have modern literature, and it seems like, yeah, we have poetry, but those people, obviously that's not how they're making their career, but that's how you figured out a way to stack all of this to make a business out of it.
Yeah, I did. And it was very important to me not to lose my artistic integrity in the process. So I tried to balance out both of those things.
All right. I want to back up a little bit. I was reading online about your journey into poetry, and you say it was an unexpected journey. Talk to us a little bit about how you got from, I have friends who were big into theater, big into the arts. I was big into the arts. I was on the music side of things. And very few of us felt like it was possible to go and be at that level, especially like if you're a band or orchestra geek. You're like, there's not a lot of orchestras out there hiring. So maybe I'll become a teacher or something like that. So how did you get to that point to say, there's something here, I can blaze a new path?
Well, I mean, I started out as a rapper and I thought I would do that for the rest of my life. But for whatever reason, it didn't take off the way that I had always dreamt that it would. And when I was 19, I wound up at an open mic for poets, and I was just doing my rapping a cappella, and people responded. So over the years of going back every single Tuesday night to perform in front of that community that really became a artistic family, we ended up winning the National Poetry Slam Championships. And, my generation was on Deaf Poetry Jam together. And one day I woke up and I realized I was more of a poet than an MC. And then I started the long road to figuring out how I was going to monetize that. and create a business out of it. And, many twists and turns later, here I am. But the reason why I say that I accidentally became a poet was it wasn't something that I ever intended. And even as I was doing poetry actively, it wasn't something that I ever thought I would be able to turn the corner on and make a living at. Um, so I'm surprised to be here, but I'm also really happy to be here because it's a huge passion of mine to write, share, and inspire other people to create poetry.
For poetry, there is so many different models of poetry, so many different methods of poetry. Do you feel like you gravitate to a specific pattern, or have you studied the different patterns of poetry, or do you just feel like you are creating something that is uniquely you and your own model, your own style, your own flavor of poetry?
Yeah, look, I think that if you're truly evolving with your art, your voice and your style is going to change over time. So I've had many styles and many methods over my 20 something years of doing this. And I'm well into 20 or 30,000 hours, with writing all together and performing and songwriting. And so I think I pull from all of those different expressions and modalities whenever I sit down and try to create something new. And oftentimes I'm not really like trying to create something new. I'm just following whatever inspiration or enthusiasm I have at that moment. So I don't really strategize my inspiration. Like I feel like strategizing inspiration is one step away from manipulation. And if I'm manipulating my audience, I'm manipulating myself first. So I like to discover it. I like to be surprised. I like to just follow the breadcrumb trails and arrive somewhere. And if I'm on the journey, then I think that the audience will be on the journey as well. Yeah, it's more fun for me that way too.
I was watching the Amazon Prime NQ Live at the Ace Theater. I've watched through that and just really enjoyed it. There's a specific tenor and tone and pattern and rhythm and intertwining of both the poetry itself, but also your interpretation almost of the poetry as you go through that. And you're telling story. How do you, as you approach creating, story drives so much? I mean, I was thinking through just one of the stories that stuck out to me was your Rabbi Jeff and the power of forgiveness and the wrong message that we give out, and just that process of what you're doing and saying and how you're crafting it. It's so intentional and it's so almost melodic without music, and it has this feel, and then you dive deeper into it as you unravel the poem itself. Talk to us about that process of weaving your thought and story and finding this sauce that seems to just flow from you naturally.
Well, the Rabbi Jeff thing is just a story. So there's not really a poem in there. It's just a ridiculous story that I tell about my life. Big up to Rabbi Jeff, wherever you are, my friend. Yeah, I found long ago that if you were going to do one or two or three poems at a show, you could hold people's attention. But if you are going to do an hour and a half, you have to find other ways to engage the audience. Otherwise, it can get boring for them. And so I started telling these like stories in between, philosophical observations, lessons that I was learning, things that happened to me that were embarrassing, that have a moral in the end. And I like to make fun of myself, because the more that I make fun of myself, the more the audience sees I'm not taking myself seriously. And then the more that they can dive into some of the serious places that I wind up taking them in my poetry. I don't ever want to come off preachy. And sometimes the poems can come off preachy because I'm talking to myself first.
Wow.
I'm reminding myself of the life that I want to live. I'm exploring things with passion and with purpose. And when you're doing that, um, you're only playing one note.
Mm.
So I think that the stories in between are different notes, and they allow for a different song altogether. Um, in terms of sitting down and writing the poems, I always just start in a place that's true. And if I start in a place that's true, the rest of the piece will almost write itself if I give it enough time and space. I think people um, search for inspiration rather than just paying attention to inspiration. When you search for inspiration, you're putting too much pressure on it. And you're like putting too much pressure on the muse to show up. And the muse doesn't really respond to pressure. The muse responds to unconditional love. So I just try to remain open, and I pay attention to when it is that I'm moved or inspired or pissed off. And then I'll start a poem in that place. And, and then it just starts to flow, and I just follow the railroad tracks
Mm.
until I get there.
I think of what you're saying here, and to me, what stands out is awareness. Being aware of what's happening to you, around you, in your mind, and in the emotions that you're feeling, what you're seeing around you. And I think of so many people that they have this perspective of their life that there's not anything interesting about them, that they don't have a story to share, that there's nothing significant or important or special or unique about them. How much do you feel like what you do is simply being in tune and taking the time to be aware of what is happening?
I think that that's a part of my job as an artist is, and it's also a luxury because I don't live on someone else's timeline.
Mm.
I don't have to wake up because someone else tells me to wake up. Even when I choose to do a workshop or a speaking gig or a public show, I'm an independent contractor. I decide to do those things, so I take responsibility for my time and how I choose to spend it. When you're on someone else's timeline and you have other responsibilities, kids, mortgage, all these things, that can pile up, it's just very easy to stop paying attention to that voice inside of you that says, I'm curious about this, or I'm interested in that, because you have to do all these other things. It's, oh shit, Sally at the soccer practice, or my boss is texting me in the middle of dinner now, there's no time that's off limits anymore. And so my job is to live and then pay attention to the life that I'm living, and then reflect that back as a mirror through my art form to allow people to see themselves. And hopefully it reminds them of that voice inside of themselves. At the highest level, it can inspire them to use that voice.
You are in the process of, in April, you launched a podcast, Inquire Within. You have a book of the same title, Inquire Within. What was it that you were looking to explore with both of those outlets?
Well, they're of the same name, but they were different.
Yeah.
Like in terms of their inception point. The book, I was just looking for a vehicle for my poetry, because mostly I would show up at these shows, whether it was 100 people or 5,000 people, and I'd perform and then I'd disappear. All of the poems that I ever wrote were living, breathing documents. So they would change as I would change. And I wasn't ever giving them away fully. I mean, I have videos that have gone viral and songs that, 500 million people have listened to, but that's different than actually giving it away, allowing someone to take physical ownership over something, to hold it in their hands, to make it theirs, to live with it, to create memories with it, to interpret over and over again the poems in maybe ways that I didn't even interpret them to be, which is also okay. So I think I wanted that vehicle, and I found it in this book. We got a publishing deal with Harper One, which is kind of like the spiritual division of HarperCollins. You know,
Yeah.
they do The Alchemist and Thich Nhat Hanh and Ram Dass before he passed, and you know, just all these people that I really respected and whose work has impacted me. And we put together this incredible compilation of old poems and new poems and stories. And if you look at the cover, you know, it's the branches of the tree and the roots that mirror each other. So when you turn it upside down, the roots become the branches. And when you turn it to the side, it's lungs.
Love
So
that.
the two halves of the book are inhale and exhale. And inhale is the kind of like a personal journey, the hero's journey, if you will, stories about my life and everything like that. And then exhale is the social and political stuff. So it's, you know, change yourself, change the world. And the book is done really well. And then we also have the audiobook where I read all of the poems, and we got nominated for an audio award. And, you know, both have been really well received. And I'm excited to keep pushing this piece of art out into the world. And then in terms of the podcast, man, I just kind of realized that there was no podcast that I was aware of that interviewed the best poets of our time. And so that was the lens, was just gathering all of the best poets in, you know, my community, from the spoken word scene, from the Instagram community, from the author community, and allowing them to have a space to tell their story. Because it's not really that I think I'm such a master of poetry, as you tried to say earlier, or that I changed the perception of what poetry is for people. I just don't think they have a lot of experiences with the poets that are out in the world right now. And those poets are life-changing. Some of the best art experiences I've ever had was watching another poet on stage reading their work. So I wanted to put a spotlight on that in the Inquire Within podcast.
Yeah, I love that. Would you indulge us listening right now with maybe one of your pieces of work, with one of your poems?
Okay, how about this? Learned fear can be overcome when you realize the voice inside your head is not yours. It's an imitation of the voices from before, repeating on a loop inside your quiet core, receiving since your youth when your choices weren't even yours. Perceiving was the proof, but reality has many doors, so why are we still fighting other people's wars? Learned fear can be overcome when you realize the voice inside your head is not yours. It's an imitation of the voices from before, repeating on a loop inside your quiet core. And you can't tell the difference because it sounds the same. But trust me when I tell you, most of what you think is from somebody else's brain. They have us trained, shackled by imaginary chains. Imaginary rules for imaginary games, but they don't know the reasons either. So where should we place the blame? And who is they anyway when we're all the same? Our parents had parents, and their parents had parents. Apparently, it hurts to see, so I'll be transparent. The world is so much bigger than your insecurities. And they don't speak on your behalf without your soul's authority. The world is so much bigger than your culture or community, and they don't speak on your behalf without your soul's authority, because if it's all a story, then nobody else can tell it for me. Since I'm always transforming, I defy a category. When you do the same thing the same way, it's habit forming. But nothing in this land of mortal man is mandatory. It's all just transitory. Our world is a laboratory. Experimenting on today can change tomorrow morning. And since matter is mostly empty space, we're in a sea of consciousness where the boundaries are erased. So I stared at my reflection until I couldn't see my face. Then I picked myself and put the flowers in an empty vase. If you came for validation, then you're in the wrong place. The only certain satisfaction is becoming what you've chased, and there's no running from the inner voice. So it's important that you choose, but it's more important that you know you have a choice. You have a choice. Are you living someone else's life? You have a voice. Does it haunt you in the dead of night? Would you fly if you weren't convinced to be afraid of heights? And who convinced you anyway? They had no fucking right. I mean, right? No one can dim your light. You shine within so bright that you could blind the sun from sight and scare him back into the night. No one can dim your light. I said it twice because you're greater than the circumstances that surround your perfect life. You're not your nature or your nurture. You're a prototype. And if you hone it right, eventually you'll hack your satellite. A little to the left, a little to the right, just right. At first, it's nothing. Then nothing turns into a whisper. Turn the dial, then it gets crisper in your transistor. Wait a while, and the whisper turns into a scream. It overwhelms your system, and you won't know what it means. But pump the volume up, and it can tell you all your dreams, till pretty soon it's the only voice you'll ever need. Now, all you have to do is listen when you want to lead. Your fear disintegrates when you decide to stop and breathe. It's your authentic voice. No matter where you go, it never leaves. And that's God, no matter what religion you believe.
Super powerful. So earlier in the interview, you said when you write, you're often writing to yourself, but you're also writing for others. And you're reminding yourself you don't want to be preachy, but you want to come off and communicate a message or a series of thoughts. When you write something like that, what is the hoped outcome that you have?
I don't have a hoped outcome.
And that's part of the loving the muse, not trying to work it out, but actually loving the muse through, just kind of following where it goes.
Yeah, you could say, I don't want to, I want to love the muse, not judge the muse.
Yeah.
I don't have some sort of a hoped outcome. I don't confine people to my interpretation of my work. Plus, my interpretation of my work changes over time. So why would I confine you to my definition of it at this moment? That's boring.
So is it almost like an offering, like you're offering this as a spark for others to follow to their own, not only conclusion, but own place of launching off of that in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, look, man, art is about freedom. It's not about control. I do respect that there are artists out there who are very specific about what they want you to think and feel and experience. But for me, that's about controlling them rather than giving them the gift of momentary freedom. And it's too much pressure for me to try to control what other people think and feel.
Right.
It's an impossible task. And who am I to say that what I interpreted in the moment that I wrote it is what someone else most needs? What if someone's complete misinterpretation of what my meaning was is what they're supposed to hear? If someone comes up to me and they say, oh, I thought something or I felt something from your work that was positive, I'm also, humbled, moved. But if someone comes up to me and says, hey, man, like something that you wrote inspired me to do something positive in reality, like to take an action in the world that was good for me or the people around me. That's the highest compliment. And that's not something that I can control.
Right.
It might not even be something that I could intend.
You talk about the freedom. You talk about the power of the freedom for the listener, the power of the freedom for yourself and the life you want to create. You're doing something that I think a lot of people see the things that drive them, the things that inspire them, the things that internally they wish they could do. And here you are doing those things and figured out a path to create a career out of this. What is it that you get out of doing what you're doing and creating like you create? What is it that it gives you and feeds to you in this outlet of poetry or songwriting or storytelling, this creative pursuit? What does it bear out for you?
I mean, there's a lot of things. There's the process of alchemy that I get every single time I create, and taking something in my life and using that energy to build something new. There's a saying, it's easier to hate than it is to create.
Yeah.
But it's so much more satisfying to build than it is to destroy. At least for me, it is.
Yeah.
Because when you destroy something, you destroy it and you get the immediate hit, but then that's it. It's destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing there anymore. But when you build something, you get the immediate hit, and then you're like, wow, now it lives.
Yeah.
And it can live for other people as well. Could be meaningful when you're long gone. So the process of alchemy is one. I've made a great living off of doing what I'm doing. Took me a long time, like a really long time. I was struggling for many, many years, but not anymore. I've created a really great, sustainable business where I get to do what I love. And I am super grateful for that. And then I get to connect with people because I lead by example with vulnerability, with honesty, hopefully with my momentary understanding of integrity. And then people meet me there. And so I get to have a window into their lives by showing them a window into mine. And I think that my work creates a lot of compassion and empathy in other people. And it certainly creates that for me. And I think compassion and empathy is what the world needs most right now.
It definitely seems like we're in very strange, sober, dark times right now in a lot of ways, whether it's COVID, whether it's been the politics, whether it's been so many things. As a person who processes emotions so deep and puts to thought the things that you question and you search for, how do you keep that hope, that love, that sense of light in your journey as there are so many external outlets trying to change that perspective in our world today? How do you keep the hope for humanity?
Well, it's a practice. It's a journey, not a destination. And as soon as you think it's a destination, you're going to stop trying. And you're going to get swept up in the negativity and the news cycles and the stimulus and social media and all of that. So it's a conscious practice that you have to do every single day. But I consider myself a realistic optimist. I'm hopeful. It doesn't feel like we should be hopeful because we're getting bombarded with so much negative information right now, constantly. I mean, we get buzzes on our phone all simultaneously when something negative happens. There's never another time in human history when you had this much access to misery. But there's also never another time in human history when you had this much access to joy, to education, to being connected, to information, to being able to put your voice out into the world. And if you look at all the statistics, the world is way better now than it's ever been before.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that's really arguable is that climate change is coming very fast. And if we don't do something significant, we might, reach the point of no return. But even there, I consider myself a realistic, technological optimist. And I believe that technology is born out of necessity. And I believe that we will innovate our way out of this. But I also think we have to take responsibility for that, and we need to make real changes now. And I think with any new technology, there's always going to be people that are going to use it for good, and there's always going to be people that are going to use it for bad. And I think we're going through an adolescent period of what the internet is and can and will be.
We'll be right back to continue today's conversation with InQ. There is a lot going on here at Jumblethink, and we want to keep you up to date on all things Jumblethink. It's super easy to do. Here's 2 ways. First, you can head on over to jumblethink.com and sign up for our email newsletter. Best of all, when you do this, we also enter you in some really cool free giveaways. Or you can head on over to your favorite social media channel. Maybe it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. So let's connect. Whether it's on the newsletter or on social media, you can find all those links and ways to sign up by heading on over to jumblethink.com. Now let's return to today's conversation. You mentioned that realist perspective, but also hopeful. And I think that for many people, they're choosing despair. And when I hear your works, when I hear just like reading that poem, or I watch your special, or I see your Instagram posts and I'm scrolling through, it's just, I love that it sparks this may be where we're at, but it isn't where we have to be. This is the situation that we face. Like you mentioned climate change a moment ago, and you say, and yet I have hope, and you choose the hope over despair. I'm thankful that there are people like you who want to share that message with the world, that want to spark that side of humanity instead of stroke the dark side of humanity. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for inspiring conversations.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you saying that. I think despair is a very, very, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with something poetic. I don't really have anything. It's enticing. That's the word.
Yeah.
Despair is so enticing. Oh, we get to all feel sorry for ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, that feels so familiar.
Yeah.
Wrap me in a blanket. Come coddle me with my own victimhood. The world is fucked up, but the world is also amazing, and it's a miracle to be alive. And if you don't take responsibility for that, no one will take responsibility for you. No one's going to give you that. You have to decide what you're going to focus on every single day, and what you focus on will grow. And I'm not saying don't pay attention to what's really going on in the world. I'm not saying live in a bubble and ignore the reality. I'm just saying don't give in to despair, because there's no way out once you're locked in that dark room.
Your words, spoken, written, are inspirational. And there are going to be some people here who have been challenged through the last year, maybe longer, whether it was COVID or something else, to say, you know what, maybe I don't have to accept my current trajectory. I don't have to accept my current path and rhythm of life. Maybe there's a different way. And maybe they're a poet. Maybe they're a songwriter. Maybe they're a storyteller. Maybe they're an entrepreneur or an author or an actor. And they're just going, maybe it's time for me to take a leap. As a creator who has gone through that struggle season and said, I'm in this till I make it. And now that you're on the flip side where you're like, this is sustainable. This is a business. This is a way that I can live. What would be your words to them?
It's really hard for me to answer that question, because it feels like any answer that I give is generalized therapy.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I'm saying when I say that? Like it's hard for me to generalize an answer for people because I don't know their specific circumstances. And there's certain people out there that shouldn't take that leap.
Yeah.
Definitely not under the circumstances that they're in. And then there's certain other people that should. And there's zero way for me to know. So I can't just, give this generalized answer when there's all these incredible and unique individuals out there. What I can say is that your voice is important. And I can say, I believe in you. And I can say that you don't have to, first of all, make any changes in your life to acknowledge that your life is your own creation. And I'm not talking about societal things for a moment, because there's real shit in society that we could discuss. Unbelievable amounts of inequality, institutional racism, sexism. There's just the laundry list of things that people have to deal with because of how our society has been built. But all I can do is talk to you right now, this like nebulous you out there, and say that your life is your choice in this moment. And that you don't even have to make any different choices to acknowledge, like I said in the poem, that you have a choice to do something different. And even just acknowledging that you could do something different gives you a little more freedom. You don't become like, or continue maybe to be a prisoner to your own life. So that's the first thing I'd say. Just take responsibility for your own life and your own choices. And then the second thing I'd say is you don't have to do these huge things in order to have incremental and accumulative evolution. There's this idea that you have to like figure out what your life purpose is, but purpose is so big. Passion is big, enthusiasm is big. Just start with what you're curious about, what you're kind of interested in, and then create time for that. And then create time to share that with other people.
Yeah.
And then you're in a virtuous loop. And after that, you'll have more information to decide what to do next.
I think curiosity is a missing ingredient now with just the certainty of information at our fingertips.
Or the uncertainty of information.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Very true. But curiosity is a powerful tool. As you explore ideas, as you explore thoughts, what are some ways that you approach that?
I just go back to paying attention, because sometimes I'm curious about one thing and sometimes I'm curious about something else. And sometimes I'm curious about something, but I don't want to express it through a poem. Like I'm about to go river rafting.
Nice.
I'm curious about river rafting. I've done it before. I love it. Is it my life purpose? Nope. Am I good at it? Not really. But that's, something that I want to invest my time and my joy and my money and my curiosity in. I'm probably not going to write a poem about river rafting. I don't know that anybody really wants to hear that other than the niche river rafting community that's out there. But maybe I will, man. Maybe I'll come off the riv and I'll be like, no, I got to write a poem. I wrote a poem the last time I went river rafting, but it was more just about being in nature. And it was so short. No one ever heard it. I don't think I ever did it to anyone. It was like a 45-second poem. And like all poems, I just wrote it for myself. And some of them that I write for myself, I realized I'm going to share this with other people. And then some I realized that I don't,
So how do you decide what you share and what you don't?
I mean, I was going to say something inappropriate, but I won't. How do you decide anything?
Yeah.
You just listen. Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to find and connect with you?
Well, I've become very bored with social media recently. I'm sure that I will get enthused about it soon. But, oh God, just like even going on there just feels like It's like a chore sometimes,
I'm with you. I'm with you 100% right now.
Yeah. So that being said, I will start re-engaging, and it's the best way to get a hold of me because I am on Instagram and I do have a presence there, and I post my quotes and anything that I'm doing, from a digital workshop to a live show to the special or the book or the next podcast episode. Um, we're dropping a podcast episode today with this incredible poet, Ali Michelle, and she has a huge Instagram following as well. So yeah, you can find me. I'm at InQ Life. You can also sign up on my email list on my website, and that's just in-q.com. InQ is short for in question.
Mhm.
And so you can always find me there. And I do like to hear from people. So if you do buy the book or you start listening to the podcast, send me a message, let me know, because I actually do read them and I engage with people. And, somebody last week literally reached out and asked if I would do a workshop for him and his wife,
Oh,
because it was her birthday. And she's a writer, and she was looking for ways to get re-inspired through writing. And I do public workshops all the time. I've been doing the New You workshop series. We've done 3 of them this year, and they've been really successful. And then I do it for companies and corporations all around the world. But doing it for just a couple was kind of a fun new experience. And my wife was out of town, and I was literally like, yeah, you know what, I'll do it. And he hit me up and he was like, yo, man, like, what's your budget? And I said, my rate is embarrassing. I was like, it's embarrassing for me to tell you how much people pay me to show up and perform. So I said, what were you thinking? And he told me, and I said, you know what, I'll just do it. I just want to do it. So we had this like amazing experience. So the point is, if you reach out to me, I'll respond to you if I can. If I have the time and the space, I will truly read it and truly respond. And I always welcome meeting someone new.
we're going to take a break right here. When we come back, it is rapid fire questions. We'll be right back. Later this week, I am excited about our guest. His name is Fergie Philippe. He is one of the stars of the hit Broadway musical Hamilton. He is also a podcast host, a very unique journey into podcasting because of COVID. He hosts a podcast called Meet the Muppets. It's all about the re-release of the Muppets franchise, all of the shows, all the movies on Disney Plus. I love this conversation. I think you're going to enjoy it too. So make sure to check out our conversation later this week with Fergie Philippe. Now let's jump into rapid fire questions.
Levez seulement le bras pour mettre l'aiguille sur le disque. Mettez le contact.
We are back with NQ. These are our rapid fire questions. We do them in every episode. Are you ready for them?
Yeah, the only thing is I don't know how to be rapid fire. So we'll see if I can answer these quickly.
As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A rapper.
What is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Start where you are.
What is one trend you are currently excited about?
Cryptocurrency.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. China just locked down on that pretty hard this last week. Some crazy things happening there.
I don't know enough about what China was doing because I was like too caught up in the Elon Musk Twitter storm. Yeah, I don't normally talk about my cryptocurrency positions on podcasts, but I'll leave it at that.
Nice. What is one book you think every dreamer should read?
The Prophet by Khalil Gibran.
Yeah. For you, how do you define success?
It's such a hard question to answer. I wouldn't know how to do that in a rapid fire way. I would say that success is continuously being redefined for me. But I feel very successful. I feel, even though I have goals that are beyond this moment, I've been through so many dark times, man. I'm just like really grateful for everything that I've experienced that's brought me to this moment. And I really mean that. It's not like something I'm saying to sell people anything.
Yeah.
And I know that there's other people out there who have experienced tragedies that I can't even imagine. But what I know is whatever happens to us makes us who we are. And I know that it's a miracle to be alive. And I know that the time is always now. And I feel successful in this moment talking to you.
Yeah. I have a friend who always says it takes a miracle a minute. And I think that's just such a unique perspective. And you've said that word and that phrasing over, a few times in the interview. And life is filled with miracles if we're aware of them, of amazing things that don't seem like were possible or realistic or feasible, and yet they happen. So,
well, when you were a kid, everything was a miracle. You're trying to figure it all out. And so everywhere you look, miracles here, miracles there. And then we become adults and we're just so, I get it. I understand all this. Like all this stuff, I understand it. And then it's like, for me to find a miracle, I got to go river rafting. It's like, okay. But like maybe there's miracles in simple pleasures. There's just close your eyes and feel the weight of your body.
Yeah.
With gravity against the ground, or the way your clothes feel on your skin, or, taking the next breath. It's your body is like working in infinite ways that you're unaware of. You're alive, and you can do anything you want right now.
Yeah.
And people really just don't grasp that. They don't grasp that they can do anything that they want at any moment. And it doesn't mean, like I said earlier, that you have to do anything differently.
Yeah.
It just means you can. And when you realize that, then you start to go, well, what do I want to do? Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a while. I haven't shared this story, but I had a business coach when we were running an agency where we were doing lots of big profile projects, lots of stuff. And he looked at me one day and he said, Michael, what do you want to do? And it wrecked me. It was a hard question to answer because by external picture, I had all the things that should be success. And yet I was going, these things don't satisfy. And that's a hard question to sit with sometimes. What do you want to do?
If you only had 1 minute left to be alive, what do you think you would do with your minute?
Oh, I'd be with my kids and wife.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be with them. And that's why we've made decisions. My wife works from home. I work from home. We homeschool and we go out and take adventures. We're going on an adventure in a couple weeks for a month or two. And we just go build the life that we want to build instead of doing it the way that people say this is the right way. For us, It's the right way to do it the way we're doing it. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. I think I would do that with my wife. We don't have kids yet, but I would want to be with her.
Yeah.
Because she's my primary relationship. She's my purpose, really. I mean, in terms of she's why I'm attached to this world.
Yeah.
In the biggest way. But if I was alone and I couldn't be with her,
yeah,
I would want to just like breathe. I would want to like look at all the colors. I would want to feel the textures around me.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to feel the sun on my face.
Yeah.
I would want to like taste and smell. It's just, it's really cool to be here, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no one else can enjoy it for us.
That's right. What's one thing you wish you would have known when you first started out?
That it's all going to be okay.
Love that. Our final rapid fire question today. What's one dream you are still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
I mean, I want to have kids. So that's something that I would really like to do. That's personally. Because I think that would just expand your capacity to love in such a huge way.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest ride that you could probably take while you're here. So it's crazy to not take that ride. And then professionally, I'd like to do a presidential inauguration one day.
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool. NQ, thank you so much for taking time out, joining us here on Jumble Think, and giving us a glimpse into what the life of a poet can be and what it is for you.
Thank you, Michael.
Once again, I want to thank NQ for joining us on the show today. We've put his links in the episode notes. Go check out the book, the Amazon Prime special, and just check out what he's doing. It's super cool. If you love storytelling, if you love poetry, if you love music, you need to connect with him. So what an honor to have him on. Go check out what he is doing. I also want to thank you for tuning into today's show. We do this show for you. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. I hope today's conversation has inspired you. You know, with NQ, he took a risk into a space that was, in modern days, very undefined, and he created his own space. I think many of us look at what we dream to do, want to do, where we want to go, and we just think, maybe this is impossible. Maybe it's not done anymore. Maybe this isn't our reality. But I want to challenge you to rethink that, to take some steps, to think through what you could do to turn those dreams and ideas into reality. But it takes action. It takes you doing it. So until next time, make sure you get out there, dream big, and change the world around you.
Mettez-vous dans une tenue légère. Ôtez tout ce qui peut vous gêner ou tirer votre attention. Cherchez la meilleure position. Les bras et les jambes légèrement espacés. Étirez-vous doucement, mais complètement. En avant, en arrière, sur les côtés. Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.